in my life have I seen or been a part of a situation where I've seen or thought that young adults think that they could take on NFL players, especially former MVP caliber type of players, especially ones that are 6'6", 240, like former Auburn quarterback Cam Newton. But nevertheless, I, for whatever reason, we have a situation with Cam Newton who's at a 7-on-7 event where somebody thought, who, by the way, Cam Newton was trying to break up another fight that had already started. And you get to a place in a situation where you have Cam Newton getting sucker punched, not once, not twice, but actually 3 times. And he shows everybody and these people who are at this 7-on-7 camp that maybe you shouldn't mess with a former NFL quarterback MVP that's 6'6", 240. And by the way, you already saw in the NFL and especially in college football along the SEC in his title run, maybe you shouldn't fight him or try to sucker punch him. Now, the most impressive thing, and I know a lot of people have said this, the most impressive thing in all of this has to be that when someone sucker punched Cam Newton, that his hat didn't come off. He was wearing a hat that, by the way, I guess the top is cut out of because he's got his hair showing. But it is very unfortunate. Very, very, very unfortunate that these type of situations happen. I will say this just to start. Cam Newton is there to try to help teach, guide, and mold young people into becoming and doing things that are their dream. Never in my wildest dream did I think personally that I would have to tell young people who probably won't ever watch this show, but we have to tell young people that, guys, just because Cam Newton is who he is, he knows more than you. He knows more about football than you do, especially you young wide receivers and quarterbacks. Why you think it's okay to try to fight or do anything with Cam Newton is insane. And even if coaches were involved, he knows more than you. You know, I think it's ironic that we label people in some, you know, whatever label. But look, if I was Cam Newton falls in a certain label of NFL player, quarterback, whatever, and you can have your own thoughts about Cam Newton as a person, as a player. I don't really care, but he knows more than you, and he can teach you a couple of things. You know, it's ironic. I remember a video a couple of maybe a year or so ago that Cam Newton was either at or hosting a 7-on-7 camp, and these kids were like arguing with him and being disrespectful. You know, I'm pretty sure that when I was at these camps, you know, I went to a couple of LSU football camps growing up, Mississippi State, Southeastern, whatever. If I would have been disrespected or disrespectful to former NFL players, or adults or coaches, I probably would have gotten a belt to the backside. And look, I'm not here to preach or sit on some type of pedestal, especially for a guy like Cam Newton who held his own and didn't even have to throw a punch to ragdoll grown-ass men. But I don't really know all of the situation, but it's a damn shame. You know, that you can't go to a 7-on-7 event without something like this popping off. You know, I think, you know, another former NFL brother or player's brother, Aqib Talib, didn't Aqib Talib's brother get in an altercation where he shot somebody or got arrested, or there was some kind of altercation with Aqib Talib? Guys, this has nothing to do with us as adults. This has nothing to do with anybody else other than we need to be in a situation and place where when someone is trying to give back to the community, show a little bit of respect. It's not cool to be disrespectful. If I was Cam Newton and people were disrespecting me after hosting a 7-on-7 event, I would have left. 1,000%. Like, I'm putting my time, my money, my effort into this, and you're being disrespectful. See ya. Wouldn't want to be you. Anyway. All right. We got lots to discuss. Chris H is in the building, says, I thought some of those guys were other coaches. Yeah, the kid in the white, I'm pretty sure they came up and sucker punched him late, was a kid. But it might have been, I don't know who it is, but it maybe of coaches, but I don't know. I have no idea. But even if it, Chris, even if it is coaches, he knows more than you, right? Like, with all due respect to all 7-on-7 coaches, see, in my industry, in what I do, there are like tiers of people, right? Like tiers of people that think that they know stuff and act like they know stuff, no more than 7-on-7 coaches. They think that they are the God's gift to earth. Brother, you don't know shit. Like they really don't. They really don't. They might know cover 3 or slant, but we praise at these 7-on-7 camps. We praise when like a DB slings down a wide receiver. Thank you for the free 10 yards. Are you an idiot? Like I see these videos on these 7-on-7 camps and these all Army camps or whatever it is. And I see a DB sling down a receiver. And everybody on Twitter is like, oh, he just got God. No, he just got a 10-yard penalty, automatic first down. Are you like, what are you doing? Anyway. Penn Jones says, what's amazing is that he didn't hit a single one of them back and couldn't have held back. Well, what's crazy is I think this makes Cam Newton look amazing in a lot of ways, mainly due to the fact that he didn't have to throw a punch to ragdoll 4 men. And by the way, I'm not going to get on the police officer that was there, but come on, bro, start doing your job. Chance Babin says, I think Cam's had superpowers. Yes, indeed. Jude says, I love these Around Your SEC midday episodes, Blake. I do too. We'll continue to do them. This is episode 2 of our midday shows. We will actually be taping with Gators breakdowns on David Waters. Tomorrow we had some schedule conflicts today. Kids going back to school, one sick. We had a guest lined up. He couldn't join us. He's like, hey, man, we're all sick. We got the flu. I'm like, okay. I mean, no big deal. So we're going to be taping an episode with Gator Dave tomorrow. Either we'll publish it on the YouTube channel or we'll just do it for the live show on Wednesday. We haven't decided on that yet. But I'm really looking forward to this Around Your SEC. I think it's going to be really fun. So stay with us. Today, though, we are going to be talking about, believe it or not, ironically, we had a lot of requests of my opinion after episode 1, actually like 6 or 7 requests, if I could talk about the Missouri Tigers. And yes, this is going to be a lot of football talk, a lot of college football talk. Now we'll branch out and talk some like college baseball here and there. We'll talk some other things too. Don't get me twisted. But our main focus is football. But I had a lot of people reach out to us and want to talk about Missouri. What do we think about Eli Drinkwitz going into another year, coming off an 11-win season? They got a lot of offensive pieces, returning. Luther Burden, Brady Cook. They add Marcus Carroll, the running back from Georgia State. Got some offensive line pieces returning. So Blake Baker, though, is out of the door. So what do we think about them as a whole? We're actually going to break down Missouri here today, and that's going to be our leaning topic. Also, look, I know that a lot of you watch the Ruffino and Joe show, so I'm not going to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on this. But I think on our second episode of Around Your SEC, we do have to talk about this Tennessee versus the NCAA thing. I am, and had a pretty spirited debate yesterday with my co-host Joe DeLeon. I know that I am in the minority on this, and I am in the minority in reference to what I think that should have happened versus what did happen. So we'll touch on that. I think we have to touch on that because, I mean, look, it's a big deal. Also, we'll round it up. Is 2024 the biggest season for the SEC? I think that there's a lot of – so, look, I have talked a lot about on AYS or on this show. I've talked a lot about on Rufino and Joe show. I am not a college football playoff expansionist. But I feel like, though, just because I am not – I think two things can be true at once. Just because I don't think you should have expanded the playoff does not mean that I do not believe that we're in store for a very exciting season. We'll talk about that, and at the end, we'll ask or receive or take your questions, thoughts, and concerns. Mr. Ray says not even relevant to talk about. What is not relevant to talk about, my man? What is not relevant to talk about? Soto on YouTube says, what do you think of wrestling as a sport? Actually, believe it or not, this is kind of a quite crazy question here on a football SEC show. Actually, man, I am a big wrestling MMA fan. I mean, we watch the UFC events. I am not. I will say this. I know because of what I watch. I am not a big, I don't know a lot about wrestling. Like when Joe Rogan and Cormier talk about, stuff in the UFC or just wrestling in general, I am not. I do not know enough. We did not have wrestling in my high school, which I wish we would have. I probably would have done it. But I think it's amazing. It's an Olympic sport. It's a big-time sport. Who's the big-time guy? Jordan Burroughs, who is a big-time wrestler. So, I don't mind. I'll definitely watch it. I will definitely watch it. Gary Donovan says, what the hell shirt are you wearing? I am actually wearing an Ohio State shirt, believe it or not, on an SEC podcast. Shout out to our good friend Sam Petito, who is going to be the director of player personnel at Ohio State, an Amy guy, just showing a little bit of loyalty to my friend. Showing a little bit of loyalty to my friend. Now, if Mr. Soto does believe, are you talking about wrestling, wrestling, or as Adam says here, which I think is a good question, are you talking about WWE wrestling? Because if you're talking about the Attitude Era, nothing's going to beat the Attitude Era. Nothing beats The Rock. Nothing beats Brock Lesnar throwing the Big Show through the ring and the entire ring collapsing in on itself. No. All right. We got tons to discuss. Oh, man. Yes, indeed. All right. Is Missouri going to repeat? Or are they a one-hit wonder? We talk about that. Tennessee in his 2024, the biggest year for the SEC. We'll talk about that. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag, our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. Don't go anywhere. Before you do that, during the break, help us out. Do us a favor. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button, hit the share to all those social media groups. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Let's take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We're back next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
Rufino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
We're back. We're going to do a segment here in the third slot of this, talking about why 2024 is probably going to be the best year for the SEC, mainly due to that what we just played. I think Texas does play a massive role into that. Whether they win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter, because if they win, you're adding the brand of Texas that comes into the SEC and wins, or if they lose, the entire SEC dunking on the state of Texas because they lose, and you get obviously a rivalry back, a big-time rivalry in Texas A&M and Texas. Okay, so we had a lot of requests, even though it's in episode 2, but, look, we've been doing this on AYS for a long time. We obviously, the team that I cover personally is in the SEC, but had like 6 or 7 people from the Missouri side said, Blake, listen, can you give us your thoughts on Missouri being an outsider looking in? Obviously, maybe not so much with Blake Baker coming to LSU, because you've broken down him a lot. But I do think that in watching a lot of Missouri this year, because of Blake Baker being at Missouri, coming to LSU, I've watched a lot of their football games. Let me start off with this. I do think that Missouri had one of the best seasons in their football's program last year under Eli Drinkwitz. I think that it's crazy that in a sport where, guys, in the beginning of last year, Eli Drinkwitz was a guy who a lot of people on their preseason hot seat watch list, Eli was maybe not at the top. Jimbo was normally at the top there, but Eli was easily in most of those in the top 3. But a year, he turns it around. They have 11 wins. Even the shirt that I'm wearing, Ohio State, they play Ohio State in a bowl game. They beat them. Defense looks really good. During the year, they have really good wins, suffocating a team like Tennessee. Now, they do lose to the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels in LSU, but doesn't stop the overall success that Missouri had this past year. But what is their ceiling going into 2024? What do I think that they could do? I do think that Missouri returns a lot of production and a lot of serious talent on the offensive side of the ball. Even so much so that any team that they play, now we'll talk about their schedule in a minute, but any team that they're playing, this isn't the Missouri that you think that is just going to come in and be like, yeah, okay, we can chalk up and pencil a W next to Missouri. Guys, I think Brady Cook, their quarterback, is, even though apparently he took a lot of slander from Missouri fans, of course, quarterbacks that don't, the young quarterbacks that don't have instant success early normally do take some criticism. But you look at a team like Missouri with a quarterback in Brady Cook who returns. He had 3,300 yards a year ago. He had 29 total touchdowns. He had 6 interceptions. I thought he played really well next year. Now, can he take that next step up? And if Missouri wants to take that next step. Now, look, you won 11 games. What is the next step for you? Well, it's getting into the playoff and the expanded playoff, having a couple wins, maybe even trying getting into that final 8, maybe even making an appearance into that Final 4. I don't think that they can get to that Final 4, but that is the next ceiling, the next step that you would want to take. Like I said, I think Brady Cook is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the SEC. I don't think a lot of people realize how good of a quarterback he is, or he's been, or will continue to be. But I look at him a year ago, there are some things that he's got to clean up, but he is relatively a younger guy. Having the experience at that position, coming back is a big deal at that position. We have seen so many times, even just in college football, not just in the SEC, when guys come back for another year after starting the entire season, historically, now you do have some that it doesn't happen like this, but historically, they get better. Statistically, they get better. their teams actually get a little bit better. Now, you have your situations like Bryce Young a couple years ago, but he got hurt. He got injured. So that is a little bit different. But having a guy like Brady Cook, hell, you just saw, I mean, we talked about their LSU loss. You just saw a guy in Jaden Daniels that comes back for another year. He absolutely explodes and wins a Heisman Trophy. I don't know if Brady Cook can do that, but I do think that they are in for a really good season. I do think it's the pieces that surround him is what makes this team so deadly on the offensive side of the ball. They bring in a running back in Marcus Carroll, who I think is one of the better backs that we've seen, okay, in the transfer portal, honestly. Now, Trevor Etienne and Jamar Gibbs clearly, okay, are two really, really good ones. But Marcus Carroll, I think, for me, is up there. I 1,000% believe that he is up there. He is a big-time transfer, a big-time running back who I got to see firsthand last year, right? Like a guy that rushed for 1,350 yards last year, 13 touchdowns. Now, he did it at Georgia State. It's a big-time difference. But it's difficult to say that to Missouri fans when Cody Schrader comes in from a lower-level program and absolutely destroys it in the SEC. And I think that he will have tons of success, barring injury. Okay, barring injury, he will have tons of success at Missouri. I'm trying to look this up very quickly. Hold on one second, because I'm trying to get his final stats here as well. Yeah, Marcus Carroll at Mizzou. 1,350. All right, I thought I wrote that down wrong, but yes, he rushed for 1,350 and 13 touchdowns. Brady Cook and Marcus Carroll, along with some of the offensive line pieces that they do have returning there, I do think sets them up for a good base and balance, where I think that Missouri clearly is going to be a handful is what they have at receiver. Now, you could look at you don't have to look far to see Luther Burden, who had clearly one of the best years in Missouri football's history a year ago. 86 catches for Burden, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think you could make the argument, is the best wide receiver in the SEC right now. But they bring a lot of pieces back too. Offensively, I don't really have a lot of worries if I'm Missouri. I think Brady Cook takes the next step. I think that you add a good running back in Marcus Carroll, and you can make the argument you have one of, if not the best trio at wide receiver in the entire SEC. Now, there are some teams that will debate you on that. LSU, I think, is one of them. Texas is one of them. There are a lot that will tell you, hey, maybe not, maybe not, because we got a lot of talented dudes here too. But I do think that you can make the argument that they're in there. All of that is good and dandy, okay? All of that, the players are great. And look, you got to have the horses. You got to have the dudes to win. I am not saying that you don't. But here is the biggest thing for me. Retaining Kirby Moore as your offensive coordinator at Missouri is the biggest win in all of this, because I think he is one of the best play callers in the entire conference. I think he's one of the best play callers in the entirety of college football. What he did last year, schematically what he did, I thought was brilliant. I think I'm trying to think of OCs in the SEC off the top of my head. I mean, you got Lane, or play callers, I should say. I mean, you got Lane, you got Sark. I mean, is he up there with one of those guys? I mean, is he a younger one of those guys? Is he a guy that you look at in Kirby Moore and say, man, look, Kirby Moore's going to be a head coach. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The retention of him is a big deal. Now, Eli could call plays, and he's called plays before, but even Eli, which he does not get a lot of credit for this, taking a step back, having his hands in on the offense, but letting Kirby Moore run this show has done wonders for their team. So anybody that faces Missouri here, I do think you got to worry about them because how good they could be. Here's the issue. You ready? And I know that I will be labeled biased in this because obviously I'm no Blake Baker. Blake Baker leaves Missouri, goes to LSU, and a team that I cover, a team that I root for and I'm a fan of. But I do think that Blake Baker leaving is something that we have to keep our eyes on, even in the addition of Corey Batoon. Now, it's interesting. Corey Batoon was a defensive coordinator at South Alabama for Keith Womack, who's now the DC for Alabama. Those two guys will face off, or two teams will face off this year. Look, I just don't know, okay, enough about Corey Batoon play calling wise. Now, he coaches safeties. He has been known to be a great coach for safeties. I just don't know or have not seen enough of him, even watching some stuff from South Alabama. Number one, was he the one really calling the plays defensively? Was he the one that had his hands in there? Obviously, Womack leaving South Alabama as the head coach, going to be the DC at Alabama. A lot of people in Mobile tell me that Womack was the one who had a lot of hands in this call, even calling some plays. So we'll see. Now, does Corey move into the SEC and try to replicate what Womack has done from a defensive side of things? Maybe. But I do think that has to be a concern. But having big-time departures from your program like J.C. Carlisle's and Darius Robinson, who had 8.5 sacks, and your leading tackler in Carlisle's, I just don't know if you have the depth there. Now, you got a lot of really good talent from the transfer portal. Maybe my concern for Missouri can be off there, and I could be wrong. I just don't think, personally, that you're going to be able to replicate completely what you did defensively this year like you did last year. Let me give an example. I don't know if there's a situation or scenario where you face a 8-9 win team like Tennessee where you could – I don't think Missouri could choke out Tennessee again this year like they did last year. I don't think that you can have the take or thought because you haven't seen Corey Batoon at a Power 5 program calling plays defensively. See, we've seen Baker before do it at Miami, which he got a lot of the criticism. Actually wasn't him. Actually, Manny Diaz was that guy. I just think Blake Baker's departure and Corey Batoon, along with a lot of the pieces that you're not going to have on the defensive side of the football, is a big concern to me. Let me end it with this here on Mizzou, because I look at their schedule. I say all that about their defense. Guys, the first half part of their schedule this upcoming year, is a cakewalk. They play Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, who has a new head coach in Bill O'Brien. They have Vandy. So you start off in your first 4 games, arguably, with the easiest schedule in the SEC. Again, Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vandy. They're going to be 4-0. Now, after Vandy, they go to Texas A&M. As much turnover is at Texas A&M right now, I still think that could be a toss-up game. We have no idea what we're going to see from Alabama. A&M. You got Mike Elko, who's a really good defensive coach. They got a lot of good players out of the transfer portal. I lean Missouri going into College Station and getting that win, but man, it's not an easy place to play. It 1,000% is not an easy place to play. I think it could be a toss-up there in your first road trip going to Texas A&M. Would I be surprised at all if Missouri wins? Absolutely not. They have more pieces. They have better overall pieces, in my opinion, than A&M. So if I had to pick, I would pick Mizzou in that game versus A&M. So you're potentially at worst looking at 4-1, but I think that they'll be 5-0 there. But see, here's the thing. The week after A&M, they go to UMass, win. They got Auburn at home. I don't think Auburn's got enough talent. I think that that's a win, especially with Peyton Thorne being the quarterback at Auburn. But you get through the first 7 games of your schedule if you're Missouri, and then you go to Tuscaloosa, which you likely and very likely could be 6-1, 7-0 going into Tuscaloosa. I don't know if you can go in there and win. Look, I know that Alabama's got a lot of turnover. I know this isn't Nick Saban's Alabama team. Kalen DeBoer just coached a Washington program that got to a national title. They still have a crap load of talent at Alabama. A crap load of talent. I think everybody looking at Alabama and saying to themselves that they're not going to be any good, because I don't agree with that. I can't envision as of right now on February the 26th, Missouri going into Tuscaloosa and winning. Now, could that just be that Alabama is so seared into my head of Nick Saban and greatness? 1,000% it could be. But, man, I got to tell you, Kalen DeBoer is an offensive wizard. He's been an offensive wizard. I think that they return a lot of pieces defensively that did not hit the portal. Now, Caleb Downs did, and I understand that. I just don't think you can go in Tuscaloosa and win. But you have Oklahoma at home, toss-up. You have South Carolina on the road, toss-up. You have Mississippi State and Arkansas to end the season. I think that you win. Guys, I look at Missouri from a talent perspective. I look at them from a just overall schedule perspective. I don't know how Missouri, unless they completely implode and injuries happen, I don't know how the floor for Missouri wouldn't be 9-3. I think that they go 10-2, honestly. I think in this schedule, there's 10 wins that Missouri can get, barring if they stay healthy. Even with what the defense may look like, I still think that they get 10 wins. So, the caption that we had that started the show asked, is Missouri going to be a one-hit wonder? Guys, I really doubt that they will be. I honestly think that Missouri is on track for having another season where they can get to 10 wins in the regular season. And if they – because, look – the only they don't play Georgia, they don't play LSU. They got Bama on the road, and they got Oklahoma. Guys, that might be the two toughest games that they have. And even, I mean, they got A&M on the road, and even that, I just don't know if I see more than 3 losses on this schedule. Which begs the question, if Eli Drinkwitz goes 10-2 in the regular season again, guys, they're going to be in the playoff, okay? They will be in the playoff if they go 10-2. They won't have to be they probably won't be in the SEC championship game, and the likelihood of them hosting a playoff game at home, very likely. So, as I sit right now, I think that they're a 10-2 program going into this, 9-3, 10-2. Now, mainly that has a lot to do because the first half of the first quarter of their season, they play absolute dog-ass teams. I mean, some crappy teams. Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vandy. They're going to be 4-0 going into Texas A&M, and a potential ranked on rank. Well, I don't think A&M will be ranked, but a potential 4-0 and 3-1 team. So we'll see. All right. Let's get to see some of your comments here. Adam says, is Schrader returning? No, he is not. He is not. They got Marcus Carroll. For you LSU fans, I think that you'll remember Marcus Carroll being at Georgia State. I don't actually remember his stat line for in that LSU game. I feel like he didn't get over 70 yards. Maybe he did. Let's look at that. Let's look at that box score. All right, LSU beat them 56-14. Marcus Carroll had 15 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, because he had 5.8 yards per carry against LSU. Now their LSU's defense was ass. That's still a Power 5 team versus a G5 team. Because I think they're going to run the ball at a really good rate. I mean, I really do. I really do believe that they're going to run the football extremely effectively. So we'll see. Brandon Reese says anything less than 10-2 would be surprising with that schedule. I agree. I mean, but here's the thing for Missouri. You got A&M. I do think that, guys, going to College Station is not easy. I think that that's a toss-up game that I do lean for them to win. I think they lose to Bama, okay, going to Tuscaloosa. But see, they got Oklahoma and South Carolina, okay, and they go to South Carolina, got Oklahoma at home. What is Oklahoma going to be? I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Oklahoma here soon. Definitely one of the newcomers here. I mean, Jackson Arnold, number one quarterback in the country, 5-star recruit. What does he look like going into year one as a starter? I know he didn't have a great bowl game, but I mean, I don't like going to South Carolina, to be honest. Not for them. South Carolina in late October, early November. Cocktober, pause. We'll see. Brandon also says one website ranked SEC football schedule, and Missouri was dead last in terms of difficulty. Wouldn't surprise me. Todd Davis says Alabama doesn't appear to be the same without Saban. Well, of course they're not the same. Look, we'll talk about this all offseason. Alabama will not be the same without Nick. I mean, I'm with you there. I just think it's a little much. Like every SEC team right now thinks that they have a chance to beat Bama. And the truth is, maybe they do. Maybe they do. I just think people forget how much talent is on that roster. They have a lot of talent that left, no doubt. A lot of talent that left. Not a lot of that talent that they signed, though, and recruiting left. Not a lot of them got out of there. I don't think any of them got out of their letter of intent. Ruh-roh. All right. Adam says college football will not be the same without Nick. I agree with that. Josh says you might have said this already, but what bet did you lose wearing that shirt? Actually, I didn't lose. I didn't lose a bet. One of my really good friends, a guy I've known since I was 1 year old, or even though since I was born, Sam Petito is going to be hired as the director of player personnel at Ohio State. Just showing him a little support, man. No real big deal. People are going to freak out behind it. It is what it is. Actually, I did get this shirt, though. Let me tell you how I bought this shirt, or I got this shirt. I got this shirt because I did lose a bet. I thought that in 2021 that Orgeron would turn it around and that they would go at worst 8-4. And I made a bet that LSU would win 8 games in 2021, and I lost. And I made the bet clearly with an Ohio State fan, and I lost the bet. So thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. Ed Orgeron making me place bets that I wish I didn't have to cash. All right, let's do this. We're going to talk about Tennessee. With the Tennessee versus NCAA thing again, very briefly, because I've talked about this way too much since Friday, but we're going to talk about it very quickly. And then is 2024 the best season that the SEC will ever have? We talk about that next. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events, with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50. That's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50 to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag. Betonline.ag. Let me just say this too. Remember I told you all a couple of weeks ago, not on this show, about draft guys? Have y'all seen the NFL Combine starts this week? Hold on. Nope, that ain't gonna work. There we go. All right, hold on. The NFL Combine starts this week, and I told you, not on this show or around your SEC, but I told you on AYS how much I loathe draft guys. Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. all are not going to do drills in the Combine, and a lot of people have freaked out here. Listen. There's absolutely nothing to gain for Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jaden Daniels. Nothing. They have nothing to lose or nothing to win. And by the way, for a guy like Marvin Harrison, for a guy like Caleb Williams, for a guy like Jaden Daniels, go to your pro day, work out with the guys that you have a connection with, go throw with your dudes, it makes zero sense to me why people freak out. Now, they freak out because of ratings and Jane Daniels won't be there and or competing. Guys, Jane Daniels ain't got to do a damn thing. Neither does Caleb Williams. Neither does Marvin Harrison. Hell, neither does Malik Neighbors. You guys, I just don't understand why so many people here overreact to the NFL scouting combine. But here we are. All right. Very briefly, I want to talk about this NCAA and Tennessee thing. I talked about it on Friday. I talked about it last night on our national college football show, Ruffino and Joe show. If you haven't subscribed, go over there and do so. But on Friday, Tennessee and the state of Virginia won a temporary injunction on the NCAA. I have been harping on this for weeks. And listen, I am in the minority. I know that I am in the minority when it comes to my thoughts and opinions on the ruling from a federal court judge on this NIL thing or NIL investigation between the NCAA and Tennessee. I don't even necessarily disagree with people being angry and upset with a lot of the things, even on this, that the NCAA has done. But there are three main narratives in this case that aren't true. Three main things that the mainstream college football media has tried to tell you that simply is not true. Number one, that the NCAA is picking on Tennessee. That has been one of the biggest lies in all of this. Guys, a week before, it was reported that Tennessee was being investigated for NIL violations. It was also reported that one of your big rivals, the Florida Gators, was being investigated over the Jaden Rashada situation, the quarterback who signed the letter of intent to Florida, got out of it, went to Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham and the boys. How is it that the two most high-profiled recruits in that cycle, in the 2023 cycle, who a lot of people wrote reports on about Nico Iamaleava and Jaden Rashada, the NCAA investigating NIL violations, how does anybody believe that Tennessee is being picked on? Well, they did it with Jeremy Pruitt. They're doing it again. No, they're not picking on you. They're going after the two most high-profile recruits of that class. That's what the whole Jane Rashada thing is. That is the number one biggest lie. Number two, the second biggest lie is that Tennessee didn't do any wrong. Now, to some extent, I do agree with the portion of the Spire Group and them paying Nico whatever it is that they're paying him to be a part of their media corps. I get all that. I'm not mad at that. But I don't think that you could ask 100 true college, not just seasonal college football fans, but true football fans, and me walk up to them. And if I said, hey, what do you think about a 5-star recruit being on a plane with a booster and him paying him, which it's essentially what he's doing, him paying him to move from California to go to Knoxville across country to play for the University of Tennessee? All 100 of them would say, well, that's probably not right. It's probably a recruiting violation, which is what the NCAA should have hit or should be investigating Tennessee on, along with Florida. But they are so stupid, they don't even know what they should be investigating. But the third biggest lie in all of this is that most people think that we don't need enforcement. The NCAA is dead. The NCAA is finished. I actually technically wouldn't even necessarily mind the NCAA being done, even though I'm not 100% sure that they are. I understand why a lot of people think that. A lot of people think that this is the nail in the ultimate coffin for them. Now, I think the only saving grace that they have here is that the federal court system or Congress or whoever, with now this going through with Tennessee, they finally put a stamp on NIL, transfer portal, all of it. Maybe we finally get some ruling on all of this, so maybe that their NCAA stays afloat. They continue to be in enforcement or have enforcement. I guess this is where I'm in the most of minority of everybody. I do still think that there needs to be enforcement in college athletics. I do. I think it's always a very lazy argument for when people try to compare college football to NFL. I think it's a lazy argument when people try to compare, oh, well, they need a collective bargaining agreement. Because a collective bargaining agreement does not stop recruiting violations. It does not stop a booster from giving little Timmy whatever money that he wants to give little Timmy to come to his school and play. It does not stop that. It will never stop that. Ever. So whether you want to label it NIL, whatever it is you want to label what these issues are in college football, the problem is that all of you saw how the recruiting sausage was made and you didn't like it and you were like, ew, that's gross. We got to change this. And yet when actually somebody wants to look into something, you say, screw you, you suck. Well, they do suck. And I agree that the NCAA sucks. I do actually think for once they might have been on to something here. Now, antitrust, all of that kind of stuff, it is what it is. But at its core, you know, I know, your wife or girlfriend knows, your in-laws know, your meemaw knows, your grandpa knows your grandpa with no teeth knows, who has to eat mashed potatoes from Popeyes because he ain't got no teeth. Everybody knows that the Nico Iamaleava and the Jaden Rashada situation was pay for play. And if you think that it's not, you are a damn buffoon of the highest order. Now, I say that lovingly because my co-host Joe DeLeon thinks it wasn't pay for play, and I love the shit out of him. I just think he's wrong. Guys, you got to have some form of enforcement in college athletics, especially right now. I hear a lot of you too, which could have been a bullet point of number 4, and you saying, well, this is temporary. How do you know that it's temporary? NIL was enacted on July 1st of 2020 for pretty much every state. Actually, for every state. Guys, we're in 2024 right now, so we're coming up on 4 years of there being no regulation. 0. We've had a lot of debates. We've had a lot of concerns. A lot of people have had a lot of opinions on it. But I told you what I think. And look, I can be wrong I can be wrong in some of my thoughts and opinions on this. I don't think a lot of people want things to change. I think so many people are making so much money that why would they want change? 4 years is a long, long, long time. You know what's interesting? I have a 4-year-old son. And the college football that he knows, NIL has almost always been a thing. He was born in 2019, but pretty much, other than 1 year, the Joe Burrow year, I might add, all he's known, really, is NIL. All he's known is when daddy does an NIL deal with so-and-so and so-and-so, he's been around college athletes. Been around college athletes his entire life. That's all he knows. And it's crazy to me to think that my son can be where he is going into kindergarten, and from the time of his birth until kindergarten, we don't have any ruling on any of this. Guys, you could be another 4, 5, 6, 7 years before true legislation is put down. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I am wrong. I know that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are trying to do something, the SEC and the Big Ten, because they can lay down any rules that they want to. If you think that Greg Sankey is going to enforce any recruiting violations, you are a damn fool. He wants the prosperity of his conference. So if Alabama, Tennessee, LSU, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, A&M all are out there paying for play or doing the pay for play for kids, he ain't going to do a damn thing. He might do a little something here and here, maybe a little slap on the wrist to appease everybody around the conference. He ain't going to do nothing. It hurts his bottom line if he does. Ask the NCAA. This is as calm as I've been in this conversation. I think college football, as an example, just took a massive hit. A massive hit. Okay. Marvelous on Facebook says Jacoby Matthews, who was the safety at Texas A&M, cannot transfer to the SEC school. Fact or fiction? That is a fact for now. So look, I'll talk about this tonight on our LSU part of AYS. This is around your SEC. Well, I guess we could talk about it. It's a player from A&M. Jacoby Matthews going into the portal. So look, he had a 30-day window that he could have entered the transfer portal when Jimbo Fisher got fired, and then he could have entered the portal in the portal window at the end of the year. When February 1st hit, okay, the SEC has a conference ruling that you cannot transfer from conference to conference or school to school inside the conference after February the 1st. Now, I've seen everybody say, well, Blake, he can get a waiver. Guys, he had more than 180 days to go into the portal. Or 120 days. Whatever it is, he had well over 100 days. He could have entered the transfer portal and gone to an SEC school. Here's another thing that I'm in the minority of. Okay, here's something else I'm in the minority of. I'm in the minority of, everybody said, well, if he takes that to court, or if somebody takes that to court, there's nothing the SEC can do. Okay, you're probably right. You're probably right that there's nothing that they can do. If you're a school, would you want to take a kid who's suing the SEC? because I sure as hell wouldn't. It's so wild to me that when we have guidelines and rules that we're as a sport, we're so happy. If you want to do that, man, good on you. I don't know where he's going. I heard somebody say that LSU was his top school. All I will tell you is, and this is not an LSU show, but not around your SEC. We'll do this tonight. Brian Kelly was going to Michigan too. That's cool, Todd. That's cool. And he says that that is a fact he would have to sit out a year. He would. It is what it is, man. I think we got to have some guidelines, dude. You know what I mean? Like, can we have some guidelines and rules? Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks that way or feels that way. I don't know. All right. Let's wrap it up with this. So I have had my guys, here's your endpoint for the clip video. I have had my how do I want to say this? Probably shouldn't have clipped it from there. I've had my thoughts on the college football playoff and the expansion of the playoff. I've had my thoughts on realignment and how some of it I don't agree with, yada, 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 yada. But I look into the 2024 SEC football season and ask myself the simple question: is this going to be the funnest college football year in the conference that we've ever had? Let me tell you my line of thinking on that. Now, obviously, you have two big-time brands entering the conference in Oklahoma and Texas that makes it a big deal. But now you're in a place where maybe the regular season gets a little devalued, and I'm with you there. But could you imagine 4, maybe 5, I don't think they get to 5, but at least 4 SEC teams in the playoff? Could you imagine a place where Georgia, LSU, Texas, hell, maybe somebody else like Missouri or Ole Miss all get into the playoff? I think you have big-time matchups. You got Georgia going to Texas, I think is a big deal in a conference game. I think that you have games and you have a regular season that some will think maybe it's a little devalued and dewatered, but I still think that champions want to be champions. They want to win the SEC. But, man, can you imagine that Georgia-Texas game? Can you imagine Oklahoma going to Death Valley at night? The new rivalries that brings? The 4 massive brands in those 2 games alone is going to be a juggernaut. You get games back like Texas and Texas A&M at the end of the year. Maybe it's played like it always was on Thanksgiving. Who knows? Not this year, but maybe in the future. I think it's going to be a hell of a season. You got Missouri going to Alabama. I think that could be a pre-playoff game to some extent, a playoff eliminator to some extent. Because I think Missouri, as we talked about in the beginning of the show, could be 10-2 and make a playoff. You have Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, who's been trolling. Well, he's going to Death Valley. Oh, by the way, he's got Georgia at home. I really just think that when we look at this season and we say to ourselves, with these 2 big brands coming into the conference, I really do believe that we sit in a place where this year could legitimately be the best year in the SEC. It's the first year in 17 years you don't have Nick Saban. It's the first time in a couple of decades that Alabama is not the number 1 top dog in the SEC. Maybe they weren't in the first couple of years of Nick, but you get my drift here. You always felt like it was going in that direction. You have two, what people believe, juggernaut teams that will face off each other in the regular season and may play each other in the SEC championship game in Texas and Georgia. Hell, there's a chance they could even make it and play in the playoff, which would be a little bit disgusting in a way. A college football team playing each other 3 straight times. Could you imagine the rivalry, though, that brings between Texas and Georgia? You look into 2024, too, and I'm going to throw this out there to you. I think Billy Napier is fired. I think Sam Pittman is going to be fired. So you have a place in Arkansas that's going to be looking for a new head coach, which, by the way, Bobby Petrino is the new OC. Bobby Petrino is the offensive coordinator and got rehired by Arkansas. Who would have ever thought that they saw the day? If Billy Napier is fired, who did they go and hire? Who did they go and get? Do they go to Oxford and get Lane Kiffin? And I will tell you, as God is my witness, if Lane Kiffin goes to Florida, I think they're instantly back. I think 1,000% they are instantly back. Overnight, in the blink of an eye. Now, they're going to have to pay a lot of money to do it. They're going to have to pay a lot of money to get a guy like Lane Kiffin. But you have 2 programs, maybe even 3 with Vandy, because we forget about Vandy all the time, with Clark Lee. Are you going to have some big-time head coaching shakeup? Is this Sam Pittman's final year at Arkansas, along with Billy Napier at Florida? I think the biggest thing is here, too, who is going to be and take over the SEC and take maybe take the place for Nick Saban. Now, you know Georgia's going to be there with Kirby, but who's that second team? Who is that team that rises from the ashes that we're not looking at? Said, hey, man, that team was Missouri last year. Is it Ole Miss? Is it Missouri? Is it LSU? Can Mike Elko actually finally turn A&M around, and they have more than 10-win seasons since 1998, since the BCS was enacted? I don't know. We will see. I know one thing, though. We'll see you tonight at 7. Carter Bryant joins us at 7:30. It's been a good SEC Around Your SEC show. We'll see y'all then. Y'all have a good day. Peace.